It is now time to meet a leader in the doggy rescue world in a segment we call Mission Possible. Carol Novello is the founder of Mutual Rescue and author of Mutual Rescue: How Adopting a Homeless Animal Can Save You Too. So Carol had a successful career and life in Northern California, but decided to leave that all behind to follow her passion project. She joins us from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to the show, Carol. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Megan. It's a delight to be here.
So tell us, where did your love for animals first come from?
You know, it all started when I was a little girl, and one of my earliest memories is actually going to pick out a Christmas tree at a Christmas tree farm. And while I was there with my parents, there was a stray cat who befriended me, and I was just so smitten. And I begged my mom that, asked if we could take this kitten home. And I thought for sure that she would say no. And much to my, she actually said yes. And so that was my very first rescue. But the reason why it really was so significant for me, and as I reflected on it as an adult, is because I really have never really been all that close to my mom. But it was our connection through animals that I was able to forge a connection with her. It helped me see her heart and know that she had a kindness and a love for animals. And she passed that on to me.
Oh, absolutely. And that's such a cool connection that the two of you could share. And people can individually benefit so much too from those close connections with our pets. Why don't you talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah. So in my book, Mutual Rescue: How Adopting a Homeless Animal Can Save You Too, it's actually broken up into 4 sections: heart, body, mind, and connection. And I talk about how animals can help us in each of those areas. So with heart, it's how do we open our hearts? How do we learn to love? How do we have the opportunity to practice being a more loving individual? When it comes to body, it's amazing the physiological changes that having animals in our lives can bring to us. And one of the very first mutual rescue film we created was called Eric and Petey, and it was about an overweight individual who adopted an overweight dog, and together they went on to lose a lot of weight and both become really healthy. There's the mind component, which helps us quiet our mind and be in the present moment. I think that's one of the greatest gifts that animals give us. And then connection. It's about not only connection with the animal, but also the connections we make with one another, and really seeing our place in a bigger world because of the way that animals highlight connection and help make for a more vibrant, rich community by being a part of it.
It really is amazing. And I'm sure that you learned a lot in that process of writing as well. And you have such an impressive background: a degree in economics and English from Dickinson College, an MBA from Harvard Business School, but you decided to follow your heart, right? Rather than your head, I guess you could say, and pursue a passion project. So tell us more about this and that decision.
Yeah, so I would say I have followed both my head and my heart over the course of my career. My first career I was a senior executive in high tech at a company called Intuit. Amazing company. I loved my time there. And but I also felt called to do some other things. And so I actually had an opportunity to become president of Humane Society Silicon Valley, which is one of the largest privately funded animal welfare organizations in Northern California. And it was an amazing chance for me to take the leadership skills and the business skills that I had honed earlier on in my career and put them into play in an organization that was going to be helping animals and people. But what was interesting when I made that transition is that people would often ask me, why are you helping animals when you could be helping people? And I thought that was, a curious question, because I knew how much animals had helped me in my own life. And what I realized is that we really needed to elevate the cause of animal welfare. That, people would also say to me, well, gosh, I feel so guilty giving time and money to animals when there's so many people in need. And what I realized is people really needed to have a visceral experience that would help them understand that when you rescue an animal, more often than not, that person is getting rescued right back. And so I started doing a presentation out in the community. It was called Why Helping Animals Helps People. One of the statistics that I shared in that presentation is just the percentage of giving that goes to animal-related causes. And in 2021, $485 billion were given to charity by Americans, and less than 1% went to animal and environmentally related causes combined.
Wow.
So there was a real opportunity for us to elevate that in people's mind and help them know that when you give time and money to animal-related causes, you are helping people too. So how the Mutual Rescue came about is that I got connected with a really talented, creative genius, and he coined the phrase Mutual Rescue. His name is David Whitman. He used to head up the tech awards at the Tech Museum in Silicon Valley. And we talked about this presentation, Why Helping Animals Helps People. And I said, how can we make that more magical? How can we get broader reach for this idea? And so he coined the phrase Mutual Rescue, and we decided to make short films that would help illustrate the impact that rescue animals were having on people's lives. And our very first film, Eric and Petey, which I mentioned earlier, went crazy, crazy viral. It's been viewed more than 100 million times across the globe, various social media platforms. And one post alone on SF Gate had over 35 million views, 200,000 shares. It was just crazy at the time. And we knew we were really onto something, and that this concept really resonated with people.
Right. And so you knew what you were doing was making a difference. So tell us a little bit more, I guess, how would you describe the work that you do with Mutual Rescue? Kind of elaborate on that a bit for us.
Yeah. So there's a number of different components about what we focus on. The first one is just creating content that does elevate the cause of animal welfare so that people can put it on par with people or human related causes. So we create and produce a lot of short films. You can see them on our website, mutualrescue.org. And as you mentioned earlier, I've written a book. So another great source of content that has a lot of resources in it as well. And then we also have programs that we help make it easier for local shelters to actually create those programs and get them implemented. So we have a Doggy Day Out toolkit, which shelters can download, and people that are interested in taking a dog out for the afternoon, they can go to our website and find a directory which will show them shelters that have those programs in their area. Cool. We also look for corporate sponsors. So we wanted to create a national brand that companies could be associated with, but then have the money that was generated through that collaboration actually get down to the local shelters. So a lot of people think that humane societies and SPCAs are related to the ASPCA or the Humane Society of the United States, and that's not the case. So in actuality, those are generic terms for an animal welfare organization. So it's getting money to the local level that's coming in through corporate sponsorships. It's public programs that help drive engagement, and it's generating content that really helps people feel in their hearts just how important having a robust community that supports animals is at the local level.
And now there are some people out there, right, who have negative or misinformed viewpoints about fundraising for animal welfare organizations. So can you help, take us inside the economic side of these organizations on the macro level? And let's talk about the funding nationwide. I mean, are they well funded or not?
Yeah, and it varies so much by community, and it really varies by how those organizations are funded. So most counties in the United States have a local shelter, and that usually is government funded, and it's funded through taxpayer dollars. And so, a lot of times those shelters don't have enough resource to be able to save all the animals in their community. And that's where private funding really plays an important role. So for example, in Silicon Valley, we actually were in a coalition, or still are, in a coalition of 6 shelters, most of which were government funded, but we're privately funded. And so by giving to organizations that are supporting government shelters, that helps the whole community thrive. So I think there's a, in the history of animal welfare, a lot of times the government operated shelters get really painted as, the bad guys or whatever, because they're taking in all the stray animals and they may not have the resources to deal with it, when in fact, you really need to look at it as an ecosystem and understand what's going on in the community. How many stray animals are coming in, and are there incremental resources that the community needs to come together to support the shelters that are doing the work to make sure that those animals can be saved. The good news is that we're making a lot of progress, and one of the things that I'm looking forward to in the context of where animal welfare is going in the future is that we're getting to the point that we can start to look at the intersection of human services and animal services, because at the end of the day, when you understand what's driving animal homelessness, it's usually tied to human poverty. And so there's this intersection between animals and humans. The more we care about animals, the more we care about humans and take care of them, the more humans are able to care for their animals.
Absolutely. And so you've done a lot of work to help people really embark on their own mutual rescue journeys. So you touched on this a little bit, but will you tell us more about Dog Day Out?
Yeah, so Doggy Day Out is a wonderful program, and we collaborated with some local shelters that had implemented those programs in their own communities. And what we saw was they were seeing an increase of 20% in their adoptions. The Fredericksburg SPCA was actually, I think, one of the first to actually implement that program. So we got together with them, we got together with a few other shelters, and we really understood how they set up their program. And we pulled together a toolkit that had all the best practices in place for that, and made it easier for other shelters to be able to replicate that. And essentially what it is a program where, a lot of people don't have the time to commit to an ongoing volunteer experience. Like a lot of volunteer programs at shelters ask you to commit to, 8 hours a month for a certain number of months, go through all this training, and it can be a barrier for someone to get involved. But with Doggy Day Out, it's really about, you can go to the shelter for the afternoon, get a briefing, and then go take a dog out on an adventure. And it's wonderful because you get, as the person, you get human, you get the interaction with the animal gets the interaction with the human, gets a break from the shelter. And then what also happens, people get excited that they've connected with this animal, and a lot of times they'll post about the animal on social media, which gets the animal more exposure and more likely to get adopted, or maybe you even fall in love and decide to adopt the dog.
What is that? A foster failure? Isn't that what that's called?
Yes, yeah, a foster failure. Yeah, exactly. We love that.
It's such a good idea. And okay, so you've done a lot of different things here. You've also, produced some really captivating original content. You were giving us some of the stats earlier on just how well some of this content has done. But let's go back to the beginning here. Where did the idea for some of these stories for mass consumption really come from in the first place?
Yeah, so, the Eric and Petey, which was our first film, was an adoption story that came out of Humane Society of Silicon Valley. So Eric adopted Petey from our shelter, and he wrote in to tell us his story, and it just blew me away. And I started including his story in my Why Helping Animals Helps People presentation out in the community. And so then when we had an opportunity to turn that into a film, we thought it would be a great opportunity to actually reach out to the public and ask them to tell us their mutual rescue stories. So we launched Eric and Petey and made it a call for stories, and invited people to say, hey, if you want to have a film like this made about your mutual rescue story, please tell us about it. We got hundreds and hundreds of submissions that in our next set of films. A lot of those stories ended up in the mutual rescue book. And today we still have people that will share their stories. But the other thing that also happens is we engage with more and more local shelters. And we have a new approach to how we're telling stories now. So we have our original format films, which are a little longer, and we really highlight the relationship between the person and the pet. And we have a new format. It's called Mutual Rescue Moments. Those stories are, those films are a little shorter, but they also introduce the organization that was behind the adoption in the event that there was one. And in many cases, they're so excited to now have this wonderful story that came out of their work that more and more shelters are coming to us with their mutual rescue stories coming out of their adoptions. We have a great film that's going to be coming out. We don't have a release date yet, but with a wonderful organization called Dogs Matter, and they approached us. So we're just excited that the word is getting out, and people want to tell us their stories. And if anybody listening has a great mutual rescue story, you can always reach out to us at hello@mutualrescue.org. Go to our website. We'd love to hear it and love to consider it for a future film or future content that we put together.
So speaking of films, the world of film, you have to tell us too about the creation process for Mutual Rescue Film Festival.
Yeah, so we have, well, there's a couple of different things we do. So a lot of folks will have film festivals related to the content that we've created. We had a wonderful event that Rough Haven put on in Utah from our Chemo and Jazz film that was about the founder of Rough Haven. But then we've also been working with the New York Cat and Dog Film Festival and sharing some of the best films from that film festival. And if you go to our website, you can find a whole selection of films from the New York Dog and New York Cat Film Festival. So that's really a fun collaboration that we've enjoyed as well.
I can imagine. I bet that is some awesome content. Now you're also on the board of directors at Cuddly Inc., an animal rescue organization that was actually founded by NFL referee John Hussey. So tell us about what Cuddly does.
Yeah, so Cuddly is actually not a nonprofit. It's actually a for-profit company, and it's focused. The best way to describe it is that it is GoFundMe plus Amazon wish lists combined to benefit animal rescue organizations. So a lot of smaller animal rescue organizations don't have a lot of resources and time available to fundraise. And a lot of times they're in need of, very specific items. They need food, they need, litter, they need leashes, and all those. And so Cuddly helps those organizations fundraising, essentially does the fundraising for them, and then helps get goods that they need in order to save and care for those animals. So they're doing great work and playing a really important role in the ecosystem, especially for those smaller organizations, although they work with some larger organizations too. But great company, and you can check them out at cuddly.com.
Perfect. Okay, so if our viewers would like to learn more about Mutual Rescue, where should they go?
They should go to mutualrescue.org is our website. You can also find us on Facebook and on Instagram. Our handle is Mutual Rescue, and we always love for people to submit their mutual rescue stories, so you can do that at our website as well.
Wonderful. Well, we have been talking here with Carol Novello, the founder of Mutual Rescue and author of Mutual Rescue, How Adopting a Homeless Animal Can Save You Too. So, Carol, it was wonderful speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Megan. It was an absolute delight to be here.
Thanks so much for watching this Dog Mom News clip. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome and informative Dog Mom News content. And while you're at it, ring the bell so that you can find out about more content in real time. And be sure to join us Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live show. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, everyone.